Did you see that Phillips become a tactical airsoft guy now?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I guess he woke up one day and realized he's like an impossibly muscular dude who's knocked out like 100 guys. And I guess he's been coasting on the Millhouse beard and losing the crazy horse and needed to find a new way to seem really lame really fast.
So you decided Walmart Tactical was the way to go, huh?
Oh, yeah. So today we extend a big Ohio State University welcome to Path. Path, how you doing?
And we're back. Sorry, that was too good. 1 second. And we're back. That's better.
It is, yeah, I hope we have a higher standard of quality here. So I was going to ask you to please say karate.
Karate. You only get one. Everybody gets one.
Cool. So it's not just me. Like I feel like an asshole if I Ellis Island people and go, "Whew, I ain't spelling that. You're Leon Peters now." But so like I try to pronounce names correct. But if you're a place or a thing or a concept, I will absolutely pronounce that wrong. No mercy.
Absolutely.
The big news, and uh, not really, but this may be in the rear view by the time anyone listens to this, is Tenshin Nasukawa's second Google Doc Kumite challenge. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's stupid, but allegedly this is only happening because he couldn't come to terms on a proposed fight with Taiga over weight. So if recent signals have been making you think that the Takeru fight is a done deal, think again because he's not willing to give up even the slightest advantage to a guy who sucks. So quick question for you. Is there anyone they could announce as boxing tension for exactly 3 minutes in the wide world of sports that could make you possibly care about it?
Oh yeah, in a way, that'd be cool. That would be it.
But for 3 minutes, really?
Yeah, just to see him get hurt. But I think I have so much to say about this. This is so fucking stupid. So first of all, you've got one of the like best kickboxers of your generation. Like you can't figure out what to do with him. So you're like, huh, he's only got a few fights left before he leaves us for boxing. How do we show him that we're serious? You know what I mean? How about Tyga? How about the guy who's always trying to dive through the ropes at every possible opportunity? Like that's a great use of like his last couple fights is Tyga. Like even if that went through, that's horrible. Like nobody else. That's amazing in itself.
Yeah, I think Ryzen should just basically be banned from having any involvement with kickboxing.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, I it's so funny to me, like just reading it. Like again, side or looking in, it's just very interesting to me. They even said like, oh yeah, so we actually only came up with this idea 1 week ago, and I'm sitting there like, is that supposed to shock anybody? Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck do you mean you only thought about it a week ago? Of course, this is something. This is like some fight circus, like only spinning shit type nonsense. But hopefully it'll be a shit show, and that'll make it fun. But all I hope is that when it's over, they give him his orange belt for completing his three-man kumite.
Yeah, I mean, like, if if you're looking at this and you're trying to figure it out like a crossword puzzle, like who could the mystery opponent be, that's fine. That's human nature. But if you care, you are a pervert and you should be extricated from society.
Well said. I mean, it's funny too because it seems to have piqued the interest of a lot of people. Like I pay close attention to the 3K gym, which has a lot of WKO Shin Kyokushin fighters who've moved over to kickboxing there. And pretty much all of them immediately jumped on it. Were like, I got into kickboxing because I wanted to fight tension. And if this is the only way I can get it, like I'm all in. It was like Kaito, Keisuke Monguchi, like they all were on Twitter like, I want this. And it was kind of funny because it almost immediately changed when they posted it was boxing, not kickboxing. Keisuke Monguchi posted a quote retweet basically like, oh, well, this is lame. Like I could see the defeat on their face from their tweets. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, like it serves nobody. But if it's not some guy from like the FEG era where they have like a genetic condition and are 10 feet tall and they have to smuggle them in a diplomatic crate, who cares?
Yeah, get him to fight Sonny Schilt. That'd be funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do something stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. So where you want to go first? The K1 Fukuoka card or Rise or?
Oh, let's start with Rise just because it's the closest and closest in my brain right now.
Okay, cool. So Yeah, Rise 150. As usual, I'm kind of ignorant on their smaller shows. But the main event is one of those blessed occasions where we get a 5 round title fight. And I hope that this is actually the main event and I haven't been misled. So I believe it is Kosei Yamada, a karate man who you might be surprised to hear Path likes a lot, defending his belt. And please retract any applause for Rise doing 5 round title fights against Katsuki Kitano, who beat him last year in, of course, a non-title bout.
Beat in air quotes, please.
Yeah. So 65 kg is, as we all know, heavyweight, basically. And Yamada is also, he's kind of a short and stocky guy already for the division. But what's always interested me about his fights is he uses a lot of like linear kicks, like front kicks, but he's thrown 2, perhaps 3 straight punches in his life. He's like an absolute monster with the hooks, and it makes things really fun. I have to admit, I don't think I've seen Kitano outside of their fight that much, and I don't recall much other than he's got a very, very Muay Thai style, throws thousands of the same kick over and over. And obviously, I recall feeling slightly disappointed that your guy lost. But what can you tell me to make me feel 1% smarter?
Okay, well, Kosei Yamada is one of the higher level karateka who moved to kickboxing. He was the Seito Kaiken lightweight world champion in 2016. And Seito Kaiken, especially since the Kansho went to prison and lost K1 and all that, has certainly shrunk. It's not the same organization it used to be when it produced guys like Tae Kin and Masaki Satake, but it's still got a decent reputation in the community, and they tend to open up their tournaments now to let others come in, so it's not like completely devoid of talent. And he actually won it against Fukuchi, who's like still the top rank middleweight. So like it's not a title that he won, in a cardboard box like some of these. So it's like it's a legitimate title. He's legitimately high level. I remember in the first fight, something that came into play a lot was, like you said, Kitano just loves to throw middle kicks at your elbow for like 3 rounds. He didn't do pretty much anything else, just blasting kicks to the arm. And one of the things that the Yamada is really good at and known for is in Seito Kaiken, you can actually grab the gi, like grappling's allowed. So he would use trap hands and like chambered hands a lot to kind of grab the sleeve and pull them in for punches. Or if somebody kicked him, he'd grab like the cuff of the pant leg to counter it. And I could read it all over his face because I've been there. Every time he would kick his arm, first of all, I understand that that's like the Muay Thai way of doing it. Kick me in the elbow all you want. Like, to me, that's not winning a fight, but you could tell like he didn't know what to do when he couldn't just grab the pant leg like off the kick. Like that's how he was used to catching this. And in a rule set where you can't catch and he's not wearing any clothing you could grab, I could read it all over his face. He was so frustrated. So hopefully,
I mean, it's not that unlike, a Muay Thai guy who struggles to adapt to the rules where you can't catch the kicks either.
no, absolutely. But I just see it on
The
his
shoe is
face.
on the other foot.
He had no idea what to do in that situation. I don't think he ever thought he'd be in that situation. I could see like he would even reach for it sometimes, be like, "There's nothing to grab here." So hopefully whoever his coach is has like drilled some stuff with him to be prepared for that. I still think that Yamada should be the favorite. I don't think that he lost the first fight. I thought it was slightly ridiculous, but I understand that kickboxing scoring is a lot different than karate, and I'm still getting used to that. But Kitano I've seen quite a bit of too. Actually, Lev Kick posted some stuff on Twitter of him fighting in some Muay Thai rules fights where he hit a guy with a spinning heel kick in the face and like knocked him out, and he was like stuck in the ropes, kind of like that fight you're always talking about. So he has more to offer. He just didn't really show it in the first fight. So I think it's not a give me, but I think Yamada can still. It's a small adjustment to make that I think he can win this fight.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but Yamada's had not a super long kickboxing career, but he's been in the rules for a few years now.
Yeah. He's had 12 fights total.
Is he one of the guys that like switches back and forth, or?
That's a good question. So he won the title in 2016, and I think he did have a kickboxing fight already at that point. But he hasn't fought in any of the JFKO tournaments, or he used to cross over and enter the Kyokushin Kaiken weight tournaments, though that's like the premier league, let's say, and he didn't make it that far in those. It's just a different skill bracket. but I haven't seen him in them for at least 2 years. So it's my understanding that he's fully committed to kickboxing now. But that's a pretty recent change, like in the last 2 years.
Yeah, like I find it kind of fascinating a guy like Benoit, like switching back and forth between the rule sets. It does not seem like an easy thing
Yeah,
to
no,
do.
it's incredibly ill-advised as far as I'm concerned. And there's somebody else on the Shudo card I'll have a lot to say about that, who's even worse offender than those two. But as far as I know, Yamada is focused on just this, and I think he can make the adjustment.
Well, for your sake, I hope so. Uh, I know you have an emotional investment in the karate man.
Of course, you always got to rep the US squad, always.
Yeah, yeah. So the co-main event is at 70 kg, which is even more heavyweight. Tsukuru Midorikawa, a guy who's been around forever with a lot of experience in Muay Thai, versus Hirokatsu Miyagi, who is like an alternate universe evil Yuta Murakoshi who tries to finish fights. He's no spring chicken either, but he's had some fun ones recently. So hopefully this can be the good kind of Muay Thai versus karate bout, not the bad kind of 70 kg old guy fight.
It's so funny to me to hear you say 70 is heavyweight. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? This is still like tiny, tiny Oompa Loompa men, as far as I'm concerned. 70 kg is as small as the karate divisions get. So it's just weird to me to hear that they're like kind of the middleweight, middle road. It's quite a different world. But
Yeah, well, look,
Miyagi,
I'm a man of a certain age waging a personal war against candy, so
yes,
it is also part of a coping mechanism to help me lose weight.
I see. So if you just shame everybody who's above 70 kg, then it's easier if you just slip underneath it. I see. Okay, that makes sense. Well, Miyagi comes from, he's not a knockdown karate stylist, as far as I know. From what I researched on him, he's an Okinawan base, which is actually probably not the best for kickboxing. I also come originally from like an Okinawan style base, and Okinawan styles tend to be kind of like self-defense focused, and that's like a really nice way to say a lot of the techniques are illegal. So I don't know how much that actually helps him in this arena. Like I'm sure he does a lot of boxing training stuff to make that, because a lot of the stuff he would learn in that style, yeah, it would be a foul, or at least should be. Sometimes in Rise it's not, but he also, I watched his last three fights live, and he Noah, which I mean that just makes sense. Not only is Noah a better kickboxer, he was better in karate, like a higher level. I don't personally understand what the obsession is with kickboxing promotions and doing that. Like they did that to Globe Feitosa. They're like, "Hey, welcome to kickboxing. We're going to give you five guys in a row who not only have been kickboxing for quite a while, they're also way better than you at karate. So have fun with that." He sort of got that treatment where it's like, well, even if it was a karate fight, he would lose his one strength that he brings to the table. So he was kind of screwed over in that fight, no matter what happened. But in his fight after that, he did win, but he did get knocked down very, very badly in the first round. It's sort of something I've noticed with him is he's one of those guys, kind of like Hiroyuki Takaya used to be, where it's like they don't wake up until they've been knocked down, and that always puts them on the back foot. So
Well, there's a standard bearer for that style now in Kenta Hayashi. His the absolute pinnacle of not
yes,
getting going until you've had your brain completely
absolutely.
splattered.
No, 100%. He's exactly that archetype of like it seems like he needs to get punched in the face to wake up. Unfortunately, that's what happened to Bane when he fought Midori Kawa. He let an early knockdown put him behind. He had to play catch up, and Midori Kawa was really good at capitalizing on that. So I would expect him to win this. He'd be the favorite in my opinion. It's based on his experience, and I think his chin will hold up better.
Okay, cool. And there's also going to be a retirement exhibition sparring bout thing between recently retired Momi and the champion Manazo Kobayashi. I liked Momi a lot. She fought absolutely everybody, so it's kind of sweet that she gets a little feature like this, but it's also hard to have thoughts or feelings about exhibitions.
Yeah, so I assume it's going to be like shin guards and like 10-ounce gloves or something like that.
Yeah, and then they ring the bell, they get flowers, and goodbye.
Exactly. I don't really have much to say. I didn't really follow Momi's career at all. I only like really started following Rise like in the last year and a half. I was more just into like karate and K1. So I must say I missed most of her career, so I don't have much to add to that. But
So she popped up in Crush a few years ago. She fought Kana, and she was like a foot smaller and like 10 pounds lighter. And she gets this like she ate this monstrous knockdown and still stood up. And you see like when they're reading the decision, it's like a child standing with their mom. But she had like 63 fights. She fought everybody.
yeah, that's what Luke was telling me, that she just fought literally everybody. So, I mean, good for her. I'm glad she got out of the sport with hopefully most of her brain cells still intact, despite Kana's best efforts. So,
So I have to admit, the rest of the card, I am not ashamed to say, not much on the radar. Can you help me?
oh yeah, I mean, come on now. This is the debut of Musashi. You not been following him at all?
There's only one Musashi as far as I'm concerned, and I don't spend a lot of time thinking about him.
Yeah, he's too busy at rock concerts and trying to save what's left of his brain cells. But no, Musashi Matsushita, he's 16 years old. He's making his pro debut. He's got amateur. He's like Rise Nova champion. He's done some Koshin stuff. He's been around forever as like in the call like the amateur. But not only that, he's from the Kyokushinkan organization, and he's 422 and 28
Wow.
in karate rules fights.
Okay.
Just an absolute fucking monster. Now, of course, this is like he's only 16, so I'm talking about like kid fights. It's impressive if it's like 400 adult wins, but still, like he's just been absolutely mauling people for years. You know what I mean? I don't know how you're 16 and already have like 700 fights between kickboxing and this, but so he's finally making his pro debut at 16. He's going to take over. Like when I just the eye test of watching him fight both in karate and at Rise Nova and stuff like that, the kid is he just doesn't make mistakes. For a while, he's only 16, but once he starts hitting like one, I think he's going to have a Taio style just take over. It's gonna seem like he came out of nowhere, but I promise you he didn't.
That's a pretty big promise.
Yeah, but I mean, I've never even heard of somebody, having 300 win streak in karate and Kyokushin ever. I've never heard of that because I mean it's bracketed, right? So you have to fight 5 or 6 times in one night. There's always something that can go wrong that usually would throw something for a loop. You hurt your hand. You had a really hard fight. The opponent in the other bracket had a really easy one, so he just beats you on card. That he made it through all that, and on top of that was like on the side just for fun picking up amateur titles in kickboxing. Like, it seems to me like he's going to be a big deal.
Well, he is clearly destined for great things because they're giving him a white guy to beat. So,
yeah, I don't know anything about Alex Oda, so and I wanted to say something about Naofumi Yamashina, who's making his debut from the Kyokushin Kaiken. Yeah, I mean, he showed up. He's got a black belt. I've seen him in like Kanto tournaments and stuff. He didn't make it through the first round, but so I would like to say something interesting about him. I know he's coming from Ideal Gym, kind of with like Bay Noah and all those guys. I think the more interesting thing to note about it is when I was growing up, everybody looked up to Team Ichigeki. That was the thing. Everybody looked at Francisco Filho as like, that's who I want to be. And that drove a lot of people to cross over from karate to kickboxing, more for the allure to chase that race of being a champion in both. And this guy, Naofumi, when I looked at his social media, he basically doesn't use it other than to retweet or post about Bay Noah. And it seems like he really looks up to him. And it seems like a lot of the karate guys coming up now, they look at Ideal Gym the way I used to look at Team Ichigeki, is like, I want to be like them. And it seems like he really looks up to Bay Noah. So I thought that was interesting, kind of the changing of the guard going on.
Well, that's nice. I see he's fighting a guy apparently from Crazy B Gym, which
yeah, I saw that too, which was odd.
yeah, like I know the demon sport of, but I don't think they have much of a pedigree in kickboxing.
Apologies for using the word, I forgot. Yeah, I don't. That one didn't make sense to me. I noticed that too. Is Crazy B Gym? I don't know if they have like a dedicated kickboxing staff or what's going on with that, but yeah. So unlike Musashi, he doesn't have any great accolades in Kyokushin, so I can't sort of judge. Typically, if they're really good in Kyokushin karate, they almost always do really well in kickboxing. There are very, very few I can think of who did. And I would love to be, supremacist and be like, it's because karate is so much better. But the truth is, the way the organizations are structured, a lot of the champions are top level guys in Kyokushin. They get jobs teaching underneath branch chiefs or receive a stipend for being on, let's say, the Japanese team. So a lot of them are full timers. So what I'd have is more than not, because I think all these styles, kickboxing, Muay Thai, karate, they're all super competent striking styles that are on equal footing. But I think what pushes them over the edge and when they come into kickboxing, they almost always become champs is because they are full timers coming into a sport of part timers. And I think that makes a huge difference. Like most of them, I saw Bay Noah even made a comment about that. He's going to fight on the Ryzen card this weekend. And he said he feels bad for his opponent because he probably had to use his sick days to come to the media event and that he can't even imagine it because he's always been full time. So I think that plays a huge factor as well into why these guys do so well when they cross over is like you talked about Leona having to do construction and stuff like that since he doesn't have any direct ties to the Kyokushin organizations anymore. Like the guys coming over like Chihiro Higuchi and Beinoa, these guys do this full time because they have that backing and there is that system in place. So I think that has a lot to do with their success more than anything.
Yeah, like we spoke a bit about the recent emergence of Tetsu PK Philip Jim, and I thought it might be that he maybe got a job to move to Tokyo or something. But then I saw him post an Uber Eats code.
Oh no.
And then said, "Yeah, I do this on the side, when I'm not training." And it's like, oh man, can you imagine if you like this sport and you're streaming this stuff on Abema and you live there, you order a burger or something, and it's like, the number 3 ranked guy or whatever is turning up at your door, or a former champion delivering your shit. It's pretty depressing, man.
Yeah, it's like you have some shingles blow off your roof, so you call a construction company and a peta shows up and climbs up on your roof. Like it is just a very bizarre situation. I won't pretend to know the economics behind it. I don't know it as well as I know the karate stuff, but typically how it works is you come up, you become a champion, you kind of get under a branch chief, and a branch chief will say, okay, you're teaching my kids in my teenage class, and like they have a lot of students, like, or if you're just given, some of them are just given dojos, like, here, take our name. And
yeah, like in Leona's case, like he's in a different position than most because he's got a college degree, he's got a family with a history of small business. And he said, like he could just go and do something else. But he also said in this like YouTube interview that if he fights 3 times a year, basically he gets a normal person's salary, which is insane.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I was gonna say is like that's how I know the structure works in karate. What I don't understand is how they support themselves once they leave that, because a lot of them stay connected. Like Beino is still connected to the Kyokushin Kaiken, and I don't know, but I suspect he's still getting paid or sponsored by them. But guys who leave it and cut ties like Chihiro Nakajima and stuff like that, I don't know how they make it work, especially when I don't know what the pay structure looks like exactly. But I remember Yamazaki pretty recently even getting a knockout and crush when he fought that guy who sticks his tongue out. I can never remember his name. He held up like the bonus for the knockout, and I did the conversion. It was something like $500 US.
Yeah,
and I was like,
it is not big.
How are any of them doing this? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
So Leona also spoke about knockout bonuses, and as far as I'm aware, he has never overtly won a knockout bonus. So I'm not sure if it's structured already into contracts, because he also said that he doesn't get a win bonus.
Really?
And again, I'm not sure if this is something that he's specifically carved out because he's, I've spoken to people in his team and they're pretty savvy about sponsors and the way they structure that. But, maybe he's got a different contract, but maybe that's just the way it goes. I mean, it's a pretty unusually knockout heavy organization. If you look at it in comparison to some others, a K1 card goes a certain way. And some of that is structural. Some of it is just, putting the giant steroid monster in with a shitty guy. But there's a culture of kind of going wild.
No, that's actually something I noticed. I remember on your last podcast, you'd kind of jokingly mentioned that K1 doesn't even consider itself kickboxing. They consider it its own thing.
Yeah.
I'm honestly inclined to agree with them. I have never seen kickboxers fight the way they do. almost every fight, is just balls to the wall, desperate to get the knockout. Like the way they fight is like their family's going to be executed if they don't win. Like Glory, I watch Glory, I'm put to sleep. Like nothing happens. They Most of the fights go to decision. They keep a high guard. They play it safe. They play it smart. I understand it's their life. Who wants brain damage, right? When I watch K1 and Crush, like they are literally trying to kill each other. It does feel like its own thing sometimes with how insane it gets.
Yeah. And again, I don't know if that is cultural or if there are financial incentives to do that, but it is much cooler to watch.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would bet that there's more than meets the eye to that. That there's some kind of you make it exciting. You get a little extra on the side. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I mean they've kind of been doing that like the last K Festa show. This allegedly gangster guy from Fukuoka, the Eco Trust or whatever, like sponsoring KO bonuses. Yeah, I don't know, but so should we talk quick about the Fukuoka stuff?
Sure.
So the first time they went to Fukuoka, it wasn't much to write home about, and then it lost Takeru versus Leona, and it was pretty bad. This one has a couple bright spots. Taiyo Asahisa versus Gangnapa, Egawa versus Chain Guy. What I'm really excited about is Wajima versus the Himalayan cheetah, but it
Mm.
also has some puzzling omissions. There is no Hirotaka Asahisa. They've also booked Koya Urabe versus Fumiya Osawa 4.
My God.
Yeah, not only is it a guaranteed stinker, like Osawa has not had a fight worth watching in years. It is just puzzling why you would make a fourth fight between these guys. Nobody wants to see it.
Yeah, it's like one of those situations where you get to the end of a tournament and you realize you're fighting the same guy you fought in the finals last year, and you're just like, fucking come on, I'm so sick of this dude. Like Koya Arabe is just living that. That's just his life now. Every day is Groundhog Day, but you got to fight Ozawa.
He's been around for so long, it's inevitable in some respect, but also, I guess they can't find like a foreign guy to just come and get kicked in the face at the moment. So, here's this guy. But I did see one thing that was kind of weird. Like Osawa recently had his home burgled and had a large amount of cash stolen. And at first, Google Translate, because have you ever used an ATM in Asia?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like you have to do a math problem because the way they like count numbers is slightly different. So Google Translate like shit itself, and it was like Osawa has 200 million yen stolen from his home, and I like converted that, and it was like 1.8 million dollars or something. I was like, how the fuck does this guy have that kind of money? And then I actually like turned the translation off and looked at it, and it's like, oh no, it's like 20K, which for a kickboxer these days is actually an unusual amount of cash to have. But it's one, please get a bank account, but two, yeah, not a great fight.
I was gonna say, what is he like? Is he a gangster or something? He keeps it under his mattress. Like, why did he just have 20K laying around in his
I
room?
don't know. I mean, the two choices are, and he got the police involved, and he was posting like pictures of them searching his home. So I'm gonna guess that it's not from illicit activity. I'm gonna guess that it's just through being dumb. But you know, don't don't have 20K on hand at any time. Don't do that. That's a risk.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not illicit things. It's just he fought Koya Urabe 3 times. That's why.
The wages of sin, huh?
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff on this card which is like local guys, and that makes sense in any like local show. But the talent pool outside of Asahisa Dojo, not great. There's one guy looks kind of interesting. The guy who knocked out Fumiya at the heart of the KO economy. He's fighting Rukia. That might be cool, but yeah, a lot of it is, I'm sure, when we get past it in the rear view, it'll actually turn out to be a good show. But there's not a lot to get excited about.
Yeah, I think they're just really struggling for outside talent. But there's some things on the card that just don't make sense to me. So they might be hard up for like foreign talent, right? Because of all the COVID stuff, they can't bring people in. But I know, like, I've talked to the father, like, Hirotaka Asahisa is ready to go. And not only is he ready to go, like, he's on weight. Like, right now, as we are speaking, he's on weight. He could step on the scale. And he doesn't, as far as I know, he doesn't have a fight booked. I straight up asked his dad, like, could he have fought on the card? And he said yes. So he's been in shape and ready to go and looking for a fight. So I have no idea why he's not on the card. That doesn't make any sense to me, especially considering where it is. So I know some of the problem with like the cards lately have been not being able to get foreign talent in, but I do feel like they're not using the talent they have particularly well. My only thought would be that they couldn't get an opponent high level enough that made sense for Hirotaka, but that's never stopped them before.
Yeah, like I guess after you've beaten Chain Guy, the only way is up. And if Takeru is not available, the only other guy that makes sense is Leona. And he doesn't seem like he's going to be around in K1 for long. He's making a lot of hints that he's looking elsewhere.
Oh yeah, I suspect Leona's gonna pull a Mio and just bleed out his contract until he can leave. But you say that, right, the only way is up, but when has that ever stopped them before? I mean, they had Konapar fight Lethwai Meme Dude instead of the title fight originally with Tayo. They do all kinds of stupid shit like that all the time.
So what do you think happens? Where do they slot Egawa in if he beats Chain Guy? Do you think they stick him in with Hirotaka?
I mean, they could if they hate him. Like he
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty obvious at this point that Hirotaka is like the next guy.
I think personally that styles always make fights, and I think sometimes the champ could even lose to somebody like two or three rungs down if they just had the perfect style that, you know, played against them well. That's the way I typically look at things. And when I look at Egawa, really great power, you know, really great body attack, but lots of useless movement, lots of like useless footwork, I find. Like he's just skipping around the ring.
Yeah, he does a lot of like weird pendulum swinging
yes,
stuff
yes.
as
He's
well.
a big
That
fan
never
of
really made
pendulum
sense.
low kick entries and stuff like that, which can be cool, but when you get like a very traditional karate guy like Tsubaki Hara, he literally just like front kicked him and just like did a kata around him the whole fight, both times. There was no adjustment either. It seemed like he could not deal with a guy who could keep up with his movement, cut him off, and front kick him really well. And if you thought Tsubaki Hara was good at front kicks, like Hirotaka is going to punt his face through the other side of the arena.
Oh man. Yeah. I don't think he'd land anything.
Yeah, Hirotaka would hurt him real.
I mean, the way he ran over Chain Guy, it was just like one-way traffic, 9 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, he does. Igawa's really good. Don't get me wrong. I think some people think that he's not going to turn out to be as good as we thought. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I just think the style matchup was horrific for him. He seems to do really well against guys who come in with a high guard and kind of square up with him and let him tee off with those, you know, two hooks to the head, one to the liver, and really let him combo off you. But if you're the kind of guy who's always moving, especially like laterally or backwards, like Tsubaki Hara, he might hit the first punch on your glove, but you know he'll punch twice on your gloves to kind of distract you before going downstairs. But if he can't, you're gone. So he can't combo anything. And Hirotaka,
Yeah, like he's kind of feasted off of the guys who, have that style we were talking about, where they'll just run at you and fight like an insane person.
Exactly.
Like he wiped out Tetsu, who is a good fighter, but just had absolutely nothing for him. But I think there's also an aspect of like the format that they have of choosing the champions. It is a cool spectacle, but it does not always necessarily get you the best guy in the division.
No, absolutely. And like you said, Tetsu's a great fighter, but he just steamrolled him. But Tetsu stand, plant his feet, and try to combo with you. Hirotaka's not going to do that. He's going to dance on the outside and front kick your face in. So that would be a bad matchup. I'm honestly just kind of interested in why he would decide to move up like that. Like, I understand he lost to Tsubaki Hara twice, probably figures he has his number, try my luck in another weight class, but you're moving into the weight class of Hirotaka and Chain Guy and Leona, and like, I don't think he's going to like it much better up there.
In some respects, I get it. Like he's actually heavier than Leona. Like at 57.5, he is heavier than Leona was at 60. But also, you see guys from the division below, like Murakoshi, they move up. They're not like massively outsized, but they also don't have the kind of physical presence in the ring that a guy like Hirotaka or Leona have. And Murakoshi just got monstered by Leona, just had nothing. And I suspect even though Egawa is a heavy, stocky, powerful guy, that against someone who is that but also has more range on him might be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be fighting in that weight. I mean, obviously, we're assuming Leona stays and actually would take that fight, which is way up in the air now. But when you look at all those guys, like Chain Guy would stand there and trade with him. So that might work. When it comes to like Leona, Hirotaka, they're so rangy too. Like Leona fights far outside and kind of lunges in on you. He seems to have really hard time with people who can distance like that. So I think outside of Chain Guy, he's going to have a really hard time in this division. Those kind of guys seem built to screw up what he tries to do.
Yeah, I guess though, if they do another GP, if and when Takeru leaves the division, he's got a real good tournament style, and I could see him like absolutely wiping out a couple guys in a tournament and getting real far, getting to the final. But I don't know. There's a lot up in the air.
No, that's a good point. I think his style is super suited for tournaments because if he can blast out his first two opponents in a minute, and then guys like Hirotaka have to decision their way to the finals, he's going to be way more tired. Maybe in that situation, he'd have the upper hand in that fight. But if it's just like booked like this, like Hirotaka Asahisa versus him, I think he'd get wiped out.
So speaking of tournaments, it's kind of been tournament season. Everybody is finding 8 guys at the same weight somehow. K1 just held their 53 kg tournament. Miburo, the Crush champion who does pro wrestling stuff and was tipped to win it, made it to the finals in real bad shape and got immediately blasted out by the surprising winner, Kuroda Toma, who beat the shit out of everybody suddenly, like doing it on a broken foot. And like in his post-fight interview, he was like, oh yeah, like I used to do glove karate and the left straight was the thing that I always used. And I thought when I moved to kickboxing that people knew, so I stopped doing it. Also, my toe is broken and I have to run to Karakuen Hall to see my brother. So that was a real surprise.
Yeah, no, looking at that tournament, I definitely thought like that would be the final though. I wasn't surprised in that. I was surprised it was over so quick, but I mean, he had a much easier road to the final, correct? Like Miburo had to fight like 7 rounds total or something crazy. I think both his fights went to a decision, so I think that plays a huge factor too.
Yeah, he was like pretty depleted by the time he got there.
Yeah.
But it was a tournament full of young guys, mostly with short pro careers, but a lot of amateur titles between them. And then in contrast, there's the Rise Dead or Alive 53 kg tournament coming up, which is using the much more sane format of a qualifying round and then 2 fights one night later in the year. That one has like loads of established guys, like the current champ, Kazuki Osaki. Shiro is moving down. Battle of Muay Thai champ, former knockout champ and great nickname owner, Isaishi. Former champ, Toki Tamaru. Mutsuki Ibata, the twin brother of the guy Tenshin tornado kicked. There's like a couple of other guys, obligatory team Teppen guy. It looks real cool, and that's a great tournament, but we're not going to talk about that because we're about the hipster shit. And there's another different tournament at a weight class that doesn't exist anywhere, 54, in an enclosure nobody wants, a cage, under a banner nobody would ever expect, Shuto, organized, it seems, by a karate organization that has historically been pretty closely aligned with both Rise and K1. And, now they're doing their own thing under weird circumstances and have produced a shockingly good tournament field.
No, absolutely. I actually think it's like way better. At least for me, from a viewer perspective, I think it's going to be way better than the K1 just had. But it is weird because, like you said, traditionally, Shin Karate has had a really close attachment to K1. Very recently, it's been shifting a little bit towards Rise. But I think it's because they get a bunch of money, sponsorship money from One Championship now. I've seen a lot of One Championship banner at their
Yeah,
stuff.
so like the title I think says supported by one or
Yes.
something, but yeah, like the most recent K2 tournament, like the prize for winning was a pro debut with Rise. Yeah, it's a lot of the field is Rise guys, and a lot of them also are former like K2 champions or K2 like bigwigs.
Yeah.
So it's a really unexpected thing, but it is really good stuff.
Yeah, I think probably what has to do with it is if they're getting a bunch of money from One Championship these days, it would only make sense that One Championship would push them to do a cage kickboxing tournament, right? That's what they're trying to build. So if they're trying to scout out guys to come to their organization and they're, footing the bill, it would make sense that they would want to do it in shootout somewhere with a cage.
Yeah, like I get that, but I also like I question how much one actually is involved in grassroots stuff. Because they've had like Showa fight for them a couple of times on their weird like Road to One shows, but they've got so many people now and very few actual opportunities to fight on their cards. And maybe that eases up when the COVID stuff gets better, but like I just don't see logistically how they can give all of these
Yeah, I mean
people
their
fights.
roster is insane. I wonder if anybody's done like a full head count to how many people they have
It
supposedly under
seems like
contract.
a job for Jonathan.
Yeah, like they have to hire someone to keep track of how many fighters they have at this point.
Yeah, but yeah, let's go into the Cage Kickboxing Tournament 2021. First up is Etsushi Kinoshita versus Takudo. Takudo is a Rise guy who's a former K2 tournament winner. Kinoshita is a deep kick guy I've never seen before. I have to complete and utter
Yeah,
ignorance
me
on
too. I'm
this
not
one.
I'm not super familiar with those organizations.
Yeah, like deep kick is just impossible to watch, and there's guys that come up and you see them making their debuts in the bigger organizations and saying that they have these belts, but I've never seen the actual title fights. But anyway, next up is undefeated human angel K2 GP winner and apparently some kind of reality show pseudo star Showa Ari versus Ryonosuke Omori. These two guys, promoters have rightfully been high on undefeated prospects with finishing ability, and I think it's pretty safe to say that Showa is probably the more composed of the two. But when Omori smells a finish, he goes nuts. But outside of going nuts, he's got like cool stuff in his toolkit, throws spinning back kicks, Brazilian kicks, and he's coming down from 55, where he was already unusually tall. Adi is younger and smaller, but has a lot more pro experience and has crucially fought in this dumbass cage before. But
Hmm.
a question for you: like people with a karate background, do you think the cage really is an impediment to them? Because traditionally you're on the mats and you have like a big wide space to work
Yeah,
in.
no, I think it does make a difference. I think anything like that makes a difference. Like I think going from 8 ounce gloves to if he was going to go to one and fight in 4 ounce gloves, I think that's an entire game changer. I don't think it takes much to throw people off their game. People get really comfortable with the way they do things, and especially for karateka, what they can do is if they're getting pushed back, they can literally just step off the mats and get it brought back to the center. Obviously, with a cage, you can't do that at all. I also know he trains at Team 3K with a lot of the other guys because Omori comes from the WKO line. He comes from that JFKO Shin Kyokushin, organization. So I would highly doubt that they even have a cage at that gym to practice in. So I think when he steps in the cage against Ari, that's going to be the first time he's ever even been in one. I highly doubt they have one just laying around there for that kickboxing slash karate school. So I think that will play a factor. And as you said, Ari's fought, in them before. He's a K2 champ. He comes from a glove style of karate, whereas Omori fought in the more bare knuckle, traditional tournaments. He's done both, Omori, but he has way more experience in bare knuckle. That said, don't think it's a give me. Like from everything I said, you'd think, okay, well, Ari's going to win for sure. I don't think people realize how much taller Omori's going to be. Like he is way bigger.
Yeah, he's like huge at 55, and he's like at 54 doesn't exist, but Adi is 53 basically, and he's gonna be like at least 3-4 inches taller with a
Yeah,
much
and
bigger
he hits way
reach.
harder too. Like he has way more finishes.
Yeah.
Omori is really, really a powerhouse, especially with his kicks. And like I said, for Kyokushin formats, under 70 kg is usually. I think for JFKO they do a little bit lower. They do like 60, but that's what he was fighting at for most of his life. So you know what I mean? He's cutting down for these kickboxing weights. So once he steps off the scale, he's rehydrating. He's going to be probably close to like 60, 65 by the time he actually steps in the cage. So he might just beat Ari just through sheer power. I think it's fair to say Ari's the favorite, but I wouldn't be surprised if Omori won. I think this is the fight of the tournament, and I'm sad it's not set up to be in the final, because I think that's how it would play out. But it's going to be a good one for sure.
Yeah, I think not only is it like a good one, it's probably also the most dangerous fight of the whole tournament. So it's probably a good thing that it's like split over several legs and not just a one night thing.
Yeah, it's probably for the best for everyone involved.
Yeah. So hand on heart, you think the smooth hairless kid with who was aggressively pursued for a razor sponsorship that he will never need to use, or the wild man wins?
I'm gonna pick the Wild Man. Omori's really, really impressed me since he came out of the JFKO tournaments, and Ari comes from the K2, like you said. He's never going to have fought someone from the Shin Kyokushin line, and they fight very different. And I think the size plus this kind of unique, weird style is gonna screw him up, but we'll see.
Okay, cool. And then there is Kanta Tabuchi, brother of Suzuka Tabuchi, versus Yosuke, probably the most experienced guys in the tournament. Tabuchi coming off a loss to Rise mainstay Masahide Kudo, who fights a lot heavier than this. Yosuke is coming off a loss to Omori. Tabuchi, of course, part of one of these familial karate legacies and
Hmm.
always rocks the gi pants. So I know you have a horse in this race, but what can you tell me, a dumbass, and by proxy, the listeners, also dumbasses, to get us
Well, I
interested?
actually mentioned earlier that there was somebody who was way worse of for this stuff than Bay Noah and those guys of going back and forth. Tabuchi is actually like clinically insane. The man is a lunatic. And I don't know if it's his father like forcing this on him and his sister, but let's just recap. You talked about how he lost to the champ, Kudo, not too long ago, right? That's not even like the half of it. So he fought in April. He fought in the JKJO bare knuckle tournament, and he fought like 4 fights that tournament. Later on in that same month, he fought Kudo for the title, and it wasn't exactly like an easy fight. Like he was taking a shit ton of punches to the head. Like it was a barn burner. They both gave it all, and I honestly thought they could have gone to an extension round. It was a pretty close fight, but he ended up losing a decision. But he took a lot of damage and like no time to recover. People who follow me will know I just covered the JFKO karate tournament not too long ago. He was in that too, and he fought 3 or 4 times again. And this was like 2 weeks ago, something like that. And he fought the eventual tournament winner, Uemoto, who kicked him in the head, smashed his leg up with calf kicks. He didn't get dropped, but I mean, he ate a head kick hard. And then now he's fighting again. What is this tournament, June 20th or something like this?
I can't recall if it's this month or next month, but it is not a long layoff by any stretch of the imagination, and that there is more
Yeah,
to
and
come.
I mean he fought in another karate tournament for his specific style of karate last weekend. So I mean he's fought
Last
like
weekend.
10 times in the last month and a half, with another one coming up. And this tournament, he's going to have to fight multiple times. I like Tabuchi a lot. If this was a world where he was full time, full in on kickboxing, I think he'd blast the shit out of everyone in this tournament, including Adi. He's way better than these guys. But he is severely held back by the fact that he fights like every weekend. And this isn't like, we're not talking about, WKF karate where they're wearing chest protectors and, they're tap fighting. He's doing like bare knuckle Kyokushin fights where he's getting punched and kicked in the leg hundreds of times, kneed in the face, and then you break a tooth from the knee, go right into the next fight 20 minutes later. He's taking a lot of damage, and that worries me a lot. I think his pace is just insane. So I think he's way better than his opponent, but I think with how close this is all together, if I'm remembering this right, and this is June 20th, he's going to fight again. I worry he's going to come in there still with welts on his thighs, and that's why he's wearing the gi pants to cover them up.
Good God.
Yeah, the man's a lunatic.
Whew. And then finally, to round things out, there is Hinata Terayama's boring little brother who Rise desperately want to protect versus Keito Naito. Naito doesn't have a great record, but that doesn't mean he's a bad fighter. He's had the misfortune to fight guys coming up like Ai Noda. He's fought Showa. He's fought Yuki Kasahara. But I think he's possibly the least dangerous guy in the field. And if you've seen Terayama's fights, or perhaps more importantly, seen the decisions in those fights, I don't think it's a surprise that in a tournament that seems to be heavily reliant on Rise, that he's not in there with a guy like Ari or Omori. He's been given the softest of the balls in the field.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise there. It's funny. I was going to make a joke about that when you said, "Hey, Path, who do you think's gonna win?" and be like, "Well, Terayama, no shit." Like, but I forgot it's not actually Rise. It's Shudo. So there's like a 1% chance that the judges aren't completely biased, and he might actually possibly lose a decision somehow. So it's actually slightly more interesting than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, but his last fight, I mean, the decision was awful, but the fight was not much better.
No, and I mean, he lost to Ari twice already. I assume he'll get through his first round opponent no problem, but I don't see him winning the tournament unless he just gets, Team Teppen decisioned his whole way through. I think he'll run into Ari or somebody eventually and just get the shit slapped out of him.
Yeah, I mean, in his defense, he's only like 16 years old or whatever. But, this, if he gets through to the next round, and he probably will, if he ends up against Omori or something, just pull out, dude. It's not worth it.
You said he's only 16. Man, that's an old man for Muay Thai. Come on now.
Well, he'll get significantly older if he has to go in there with a guy like Omori trying to beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, I think he'll win, and then whoever he fights in the next bracket will probably beat him, depending on who comes through. So, like I said, I think Kanta is like by far the best fighter in this tournament, but I really worry about if seems like he's training primarily for bare knuckle, so that's going to be a huge problem for him, I think. I still expect he'll defeat his first round opponent, and then I wouldn't be surprised to see like a Omori Kanta or Ari Kanta like final if the brackets can play out that way. I guess we'll see come the day of the tournament. But yeah, I think those are the three to watch. Is like Ari, Omori, and Kanta are like I think by far the three best, and we'll probably see one of them win the whole thing.
Yeah. So just real quick, because we do have to address this, but I mean, you've talked about how difficult it is conceptually to switch between styles, but Benoit is going for yet another rule set, which is perhaps ill-advised. We have to talk, of course, about the malign influence of the demon sport of once again.
You said it that time, not me, so you can't blame me for that bleep.
My apologies.
The demon sport of oh God. I wish I knew what was like motivating that, because there's no way he's going to make more money in Ryzen than he would elsewhere, right? Like, it can't be a money thing. Like, he must just want to try a new sport. I know in the interview he said he wanted to take his Kyokushin karate to less rules, and that was like motivating him. But I mean, go to Kudo or Daido Juku at that point, man. Like, why the hell would you do that? But I did see something about it that I think it was Miura on Twitter said that she was looking through photos or something like that, and she had a memory of Chihiro Nakajima and Bei Noah was like doing grappling practice with her like in 2017 or something. So he must have been doing it for a while.
I'm sure he's well equipped for this sport if he did some grappling practice in 2017.
That's all you need, right? I just mean by that it seems he has been doing grappling kind of in the background for, I think, longer than we thought. I don't think this is like totally recent. I think he's been doing jiu-jitsu training for at least 3 or 4 years. But it doesn't make sense to me. I don't see the monetary incentive. I don't see, especially why he didn't relinquish his belt in Rise. Presumably, he still intends to defend it. That's just ceding ground to your opponent. If he gets injured, puts him out longer. He's training for yet another rule set that's going to take away from training for the rules he needs. I know some people manage it. Obviously, the pinnacle is Francisco Filho was training on under a 4-year program for the world tournament 100% of the time with his Zobe sensei, and then just took a detour to K1 and sent Ernesto Hoost into another dimension just for shits and giggles before coming back and winning the world tournament that same year. But Francisco Filho is not a human. He is he's a whirlwind superpower all to his own. Like, that man is not human. He's immortal. You can't hold that as the standard. So I think adding a third one that he's going to potentially jump between, I think this is going to be a disaster.
Yeah, like I always have to assume that it is for financial reasons. My limited understanding is that kickboxing does not pay great, and there is a lot of like selling tickets that you have to do, and like at least from the former Dream Stage people, like the baseline is like 20K a fight or something like that. But even if he has been doing jiu-jitsu on the side, I mean, there's a lot of athletes that do stuff outside of their wheelhouse just to stay sharp. Like Leona's gym, there's a judo champ that goes there, but he's not like looking to get into. You really have to dedicate yourself if you want to succeed at this stuff. And my understanding is that his opponent is not like a loser. It's a guy who you should not be fighting as a 0-0 guy.
But it's all kinds of weird stuff going on because Baynoa is like way bigger than him too. Isn't Baynoa like 10, 15 pounds heavier than him?
I don't know. I didn't pay attention that much, but I know that like Ryzen is kind of leaning on the spectacle side of things now. To what extent that is due to needing to satisfy TV people and what extent it is circling the drain, I don't know. But this is not going on Fuji TV. This just sort of sprang out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's very weird. You say it's probably financially motivated. I can't do the numbers in my head though. Like, it doesn't make sense to me unless like just pays way more than kickboxing and everything else, because like I said, I think he is still getting like a stipend, and as a part of like the organization from the Kyokushin Kaiken, that's not an insignificant amount of money, and I think he's still teaching classes for them. The only way I can sort of compare it is Nicholas Pettis told me once that he was offered go to Australia for us and open a Kyokushin Kaiken dojo that we'll sponsor. It'll be yours. Or he got the offer from K1 and he picked to go to K1. And this was back when, K1 was popping off, right? This is the Ernesto Hoost, LeBanner big days, right? This isn't sort of the remake version now. This was supposed to be the golden years, right?
Yeah.
And he said basically he didn't even make like a quarter what he would if he had just stayed in the Kyokushin Kaiken and went and opened that dojo. It would have been way more money. So I don't quite understand how the money works. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just extra income if he fights in all three kind of thing. It doesn't make sense to me, but I'm sure there's something that we don't understand happening in the background that we're not privy to.
Yeah, well, I hope it is just a matter of personal curiosity because he's a likable guy, and I don't want to see him like on his back getting elbowed in the face for a kind of Philip-style disastrous detour.
Yeah, I suppose that it could turn out exactly like that, huh? It could just be that one-off when Kimura, for no reason, decided he wanted to go get the shit beat out of him by a guy named Felony.
Well, I'm not going to be watching, but if the round starts and you see him and he runs with his hands down, just turn the TV off. You know how it ends.
No, exactly. And I hope he wins. I don't want him to lose, but does not seem like the kind of sport that you want to just go into with 1 foot, in 1 foot out, because he's still technically the Rise champ, and I don't think he's, totally relinquishing his kickboxing career to do this. So, like you said, it seems like it's a curiosity, and that, especially he's not getting like an 0-0 opponent like him. That seems like a disaster.
Yeah. So good luck to him, but I think I have exhausted the limits of my very limited knowledge. So anything else on your agenda?
No, I think that's pretty good. We covered all the kickboxing stuff coming up.
Cool. And anything you need to plug?
Sure. I'll plug Combat Cats, the #fighter.net. You guys should check it out. It's got all kinds of cool interviews with fighters in depth. Got some rules, breakdowns. It's kind of like a newsletter for combat sports. I think you guys should check it out. And also Kick to the Future on Twitter. Everybody here would get a lot out of that. It's all about the up and coming kickboxers coming up through the Koshen K1 stuff.
I have to co-sign both things, but Kick to the Future may not be running because the driving force behind it may have entered self-imposed exile after finding out that his best boy Tetsu has joined the forces of darkness. So condolences.
But don't tell them that. This is peer pressure. This is bullying. By shouting it out, now he has to get back on it. So this is just bullying is all I'm doing.
That's fine. We endorse bullying here. This is a pro-bullying podcast.
Excellent.
It does not violate the tenets of non-rudeness. So anyway, I want to say thank you very much. Anyone listening to this, go to the places he said, absorb the knowledge that he attempted to give me because it is in one ear and out the other. And whenever there is kickboxing, maybe we'll talk about it.
Thanks for having me, Dogman. I enjoyed this fireside chat. Us.
Os.